I was born on Korulag, third son of a mid-tier Imperial bureaucrat who processed requisition forms for the Naval Supply Division, and I learned early that in the Empire, invisibility was survival. My father never rose above his station, never drew attention, never questioned orders that came down through channels stamped with the Imperial cog. He taught us that the galaxy had found order after chaos, that the Emperor had saved civilization from the Separatists and the treacherous Jedi, that our duty was to maintain the machine. I believed him. I was 17 when I enlisted in the Imperial Navy, and I believed every word. My older brothers had already chosen their paths, one in the Imperial Security Bureau, cold-eyed and silent at family dinners, the other managing labor contracts for a mining concern in the Outer Rim. I was the expendable one, the third son with no inheritance, no connections worth exploiting, no future except what I could carve from service. The recruiter looked at my test scores, my physical metrics, my family's spotless loyalty record, and nodded once. "TIE pilot training," he said, stamping my datapad. "Report to Karita in 2 weeks." I remember standing in our apartment that night, looking out at Korulag's city lights spreading toward the horizon and feeling something I mistook for purpose. The Empire needed pilots. The rebellion, those terrorists who destroyed the Death Star, who murdered 1 million loyal servants in a single cowardly act, threatened everything my father had worked to preserve. I would fly. I would hunt them. I would matter. Karita broke us down and rebuilt us in the Emperor's image. They shaved our heads, stripped our names to designations, ran us through simulations until we dreamed in targeting solutions and vector calculations. I was CT-7743 for 6 months, before they gave us back our names, and by then, I'd learned what the Empire truly valued: obedience, precision, and the willingness to die without hesitation. The TIE fighter was a coffin with engines, no shields, no hyperdrive, no life support beyond 6 hours of recycled air. We were ammunition, expendable ordnance launched from star destroyers to swarm enemy fighters like insects. But God, the speed! The first time they strapped me into a TIE and launched me into the black, I understood why pilots became addicts. The twin ion engines screamed behind my head, a constant roar that vibrated through my bones, and space became a canvas of pure velocity. No gravity, no friction, just thrust and momentum and the sharp angles of solar panels catching starlight. I was good, better than good. My instructors noted my reflexes, my spatial awareness, my kill scores in live fire exercises against obsolete Z-95s they'd captured from pirates. When graduation came, they assigned me to the Inexorable, a Victory-class star destroyer patrolling the expansion region. I was 19 years old, and I thought I knew what war meant. The Inexorable spent most of its time on routine patrols between Korulag and Bothawui, enforcing Imperial law in systems that had bent the knee but still harbored resentment. Captain Thrawn, no relation to the famous Grand Admiral, he reminded everyone with barely concealed bitterness, ran the ship with bureaucratic precision. We interdicted smugglers, investigated unregistered hyperspace beacons, intimidated local governors who'd fallen behind on their tithes. Boring work, mostly. We'd scramble twice a week, chase down some Corellian freighter captain running spice or unlicensed weapons, and return to the hangar without firing a shot. My squadron, Dagger Squadron, 12 TIE fighters assigned to the Inexorable's forward hangar, became my family. There was Wrench, our flight leader, a career pilot from Coruscant who'd flown in the Clone Wars as a Republic gunship co-pilot. He was old, nearly 40, with gray creeping into his temples and a way of speaking that made every briefing sound like a funeral. Kess and Tarek were twins from Alderaan, bright-eyed and too eager, always competing over kill counts that never came. Volus, our only female pilot, had scars on her hands from a training accident, and never spoke about her homeworld. And Jax was from Ariadu, loud and cocky, always talking about his family's shipping business, always promising we'd all get rich working for him after our service ended. I loved them. I never told them that, but I loved them the way you love people who might die beside you, whose breathing you hear through comm channels in the cockpit silence, whose hands you shake before every patrol, knowing it might be the last time. We flew together for 2 years before everything changed. The mission came down on a standard rotation. Captain Thrawn summoned Wrench to the bridge, and Wrench returned to the hangar with the expression he always wore when orders stank of politics. "Patrol sweep," he announced, gathering us around the tactical display. "Korulag system to Bothawui system, standard route, but High Command wants visual confirmation of 3 specific coordinates." He highlighted them. Empty space between the 2 systems, nothing on the charts but void and distant stars. "Why?" Volus asked, always the practical one. Wrench shrugged. "ISB flagged unusual hyperspace readings. Probably nothing. Ghost signals, sensor echoes. But they want eyes on it, and we're the eyes." Jax grinned. "Maybe it's rebels. Maybe we'll finally see some action." I remember the knot in my stomach, small and cold. I'd flown 100 patrols by then, and something about this one felt wrong. The coordinates were too precise, too deliberate, positioned exactly along the hyperspace lane like beads on a string, but I said nothing. Good soldiers didn't question orders. We launched at 0600 shipboard time, 12 TIE fighters streaming from the Inexorable's hangar into the black. The Star Destroyer hung above Korulag like a dagger, gray hull gleaming in the system's white sun, and then we jumped. 6 hours of flight time to the first coordinate, cruising through hyperspace in formation, the blue tunnel of faster-than-light travel filling our viewports with impossible light. The comm channel was quiet. Wrench ran frequency checks every 30 minutes. Kess hummed an old Alderaanian folk song until Tarek told him to shut up. Volus asked about resupply schedules. Jax talked about a cantina girl on Korulag Station. Normal chatter, the kind that kept you sane during long flights. We dropped out of hyperspace at the first coordinate at 1143 hours. Nothing. Empty space exactly as the charts predicted. Stars scattered across the black like frozen fire, distant and cold. I checked my sensors. No contacts, no anomalies, no debris. Just void. "Dagger lead to all craft," Wrench's voice crackled through my helmet. "Visual sweep, standard pattern. Report anything unusual." We spread out, 12 TIE fighters forming a search grid. Solar panels catching starlight as we maneuvered. I piloted my fighter, Dagger 7, painted with 7 small kills on the viewport frame from pirate encounters, through the designated sector, eyes scanning for anything that didn't belong. Asteroids, debris, hulks, anything, nothing. "Dagger 7, clear," I reported. One by one, the others checked in. "Clear, clear, clear." Wrench logged it, transmitted the all clear to the Inexorable, and ordered us to proceed to Coordinate 2. We jumped again, 3 hours this time, deeper into the space between systems where hyperspace lanes ran through emptiness. The blue tunnel swallowed us, and I watched my chronometer count down the minutes. Jax started talking about the cantina girl again, describing her in terms that made Volus threaten to shoot him herself. We dropped out at 1512 hours, and everything went wrong. The first thing I noticed was the cold. My cockpit temperature dropped 10 degrees in 5 seconds, frost forming on the inside of my viewport. My breath came out in clouds. The TIE fighter's environmental system screamed warnings, struggling to compensate, but the temperature kept falling. "Dagger 7, I'm reading massive temperature drop," I transmitted, checking my instruments. "Environmental failure?" "Negative," Volus responded immediately. "I'm getting the same thing. External temperature reading is... That can't be right. What is it? Wrench demanded. Negative 200 degrees, Volus said slowly. But we're in open space. That's not possible. And then I saw them. Ships. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, hanging in the void around us like a graveyard. Imperial ships. TIE fighters mostly, but also shuttles, a few gunboats, even what looked like a corvette. They floated dead in space, no running lights, no engine glow, no life, just hulks, frozen and dark. What the hell? Kess whispered. My sensors suddenly lit up like a life-day tree. Contacts everywhere, surrounding us in a sphere, but they weren't moving. Dead vessels, the computer confirmed. No power signatures, no heat, no life signs, just metal and composite materials, cold as the void itself. Dagger lead to inexorable, Wrench transmitted, his voice tight. We have multiple Imperial vessels at coordinate 2, all dead in space, requesting immediate extraction, and the comm cut out, not static, not interference, just silence, absolute and total, like someone had severed the channel with a knife. I checked my equipment, full power, no damage, but the comm was dead. I switched frequencies, tried emergency channels, even cycled through every bandwidth my fighter could access. Nothing. Dagger lead, I've lost connection to the inexorable, I transmitted on squadron frequency. Can anyone raise them? Negative? That was Tarek, his voice higher than usual. I'm trying everything. It's like they don't exist. Maintain formation, Wrench ordered, and I could hear him fighting to keep calm. We'll proceed to coordinate 3, complete the mission and return to... Something moved. I saw it on my sensors first. A contact, massive, emerging from behind the Corvette hulk. No, not emerging, uncloaking. The sensor profile materialized like a ghost, becoming solid, and my computer struggled to classify it. Not Imperial, not Rebel, not anything in the database. The ship was organic. That's the only word that fits. It looked grown rather than built, all curves and ridges like bone, dark purple-black that seemed to absorb light. It was huge, maybe frigate-sized, with what might have been weapons or sensor clusters or something else entirely bristling along its hull. And it was moving toward us, slow and deliberate, like a predator that didn't need to rush. "Break formation," Wrench shouted. "Evasive pattern gamma, regroup at..." The ship fired. Not lasers, not ion cannons, something else, a beam of darkness that wasn't a weapon I could understand. It touched Dagger 3, Kess, and his TIE fighter simply stopped. Engines died mid-burn, momentum carrying it forward for a moment before it went completely still, frozen in space, no damage visible, just dead. "Kess!" Tarek screamed. Kess, respond!" Silence. I punched my throttle to maximum, the TIE fighter screaming as I dove toward the nearest derelict for cover. Behind me, I heard Wrench shouting orders, heard weapons fire as someone opened up with their laser cannons, heard Volus cursing in a language I didn't recognize. The organic ship fired again, and again. Each beam touched a TIE fighter, and each fighter died instantly, not destroyed, killed. There's a difference. An explosion you can understand, debris and fire and violence. This was wrongness, a violation of physical law, fighters stopping mid-flight like insects trapped in amber. I twisted through the graveyard of dead ships, using them as cover, solar panels nearly clipping hulls as I pushed my fighter beyond safety margins. My sensor display showed Dagger Squadron dying. 10 contacts, 8, 6. The organic ship moved through us like we were nothing, like we were already dead and just didn't know it yet. "Coordinate 3, Wrench transmitted, his voice breaking. "Jump to coordinate 3, regroup, we need to..." His signal cut off. I looked back, saw his fighter frozen like the others, solar panels catching the light of distant stars. 4 of us left. Me, Tarek, Volus, and Jax. "Jump now!" Jax screamed. "Punch it!" I reached for my hyperspace controls, plotted the jump to coordinate 3, and engaged. The hyperdrive spooled up, that familiar whine building towards the jump, and the stars began to stretch. And then we were there. No jump, no hyperspace tunnel. One moment I was at coordinate 2, the next I was at coordinate 3. Instantaneous transition that made my brain scream in confusion. My fighter lurched, alarms shrieking, and I fought to stabilize as my stomach tried to turn itself inside out. "What just happened?" Volus gasped. "Coordinate 3, the third point on the patrol route. And waiting for us was a fleet, not the organic ship. Something worse. Something that made my blood freeze despite the cockpit temperature finally normalizing. Star destroyers, 7 of them, Imperial class, hanging in formation like they were on parade. Running lights dark, no engine glow, no communication signals. Dead, like everything else. But these weren't derelicts, these were fresh kills, hulls unmarked, no battle damage visible. They'd simply stopped. And floating among them were the TIE fighters. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, organized in perfect formation despite being completely dead. A fleet of ghosts positioned like they were still on patrol, still hunting, still serving. "This is an Imperial graveyard," I whispered. That's when I noticed the debris. Not ship debris, personal effects. Thousands of objects floating in the void between the dead vessels. Helmets, uniforms, data pads, weapons, personal items, but no bodies, not a single body. Just the things they'd owned, drifting in the dark like memories. "We need to leave," Tarek said, his voice steady now, calm in the way people get when terror crosses into acceptance. "We need to jump out of this system and never come back." "Agreed," Volus said. I was already plotting coordinates back to Korolag, any coordinates anywhere that wasn't here. My hyperdrive spooled up again and I engaged. Nothing happened. The hyperdrive died. Power systems nominal, fuel full, but the hyperdrive simply refused to function. I tried again, then again, panic rising in my chest like water filling a crashed ship. "I can't jump," I transmitted. "Neither can I," Jax said quietly. We were trapped. That's when the voice came through the comm. Not spoken, not transmitted. It simply appeared in my head, in all our heads simultaneously. Words without sound that I heard in my skull like they were coming from inside my own thoughts. "You should not have come here." The organic ship materialized among the dead star destroyers, uncloaking like a nightmare becoming real. It was even larger than I'd thought, easily 300 meters, and up close I could see it wasn't just organic looking, it was alive. The hull rippled like skin, and what I'd thought were weapons looked more like organs, pulsing with bioluminescent light. "This place is ours," the voice continued, and I realized it wasn't one voice, but many, overlapping, speaking in unison. "You are not welcome. You are not safe. You are not leaving." "What are you?" Wrench transmitted. No, wait. Wrench was dead, frozen at coordinate 2. That was Jax's voice. Jax asking questions we'd never get answered. "We are what comes after," the voices said. "We are what waits in the dark between stars. We are the collectors of the dead." And then I understood. The disappeared patrols. The ISB reports of unusual hyperspace readings. Ships sent to investigate that never returned. Written off as navigational errors, equipment failures, rebel ambushes. These things, had been hunting Imperial patrols for months, maybe years, drawing them to these coordinates with false signals, adding them to the graveyard. "Why?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you came to the dark," the voices answered. "You brought your empire to places it does not belong. You spread across the galaxy like infection, and infection must be contained. We collect what you send. We preserve what you lose, and we wait." The organic ship moved closer, and I saw things writhing along its hull. Not crew, extensions of the ship itself, tentacles or appendages or limbs that defied classification. They reached out toward the dead Star Destroyers, toward the frozen TIE fighters, toward us. "You will join them," the voices said. "You will become part of the collection. Your ships will float here forever, perfect and preserved, a monument to your empire's hubris. And when others come looking for you, they will join as well." Jax opened fire. His TIE fighter lit up the dark with laser cannon fire, ruby bolts hammering the organic ship's hull. They splashed against it like water, causing ripples but no damage. The ship didn't even react, just continued its slow advance. "Run," Volus said suddenly. "Don't engage, just run. Maximum burn, random vectors. Get as far from this coordinate as possible." It was suicide. We had 6 hours of life support, no hyperdrive, and nowhere to go. But dying while running was better than dying frozen in place, added to this nightmare collection. I punched my throttle to maximum and dove, choosing a vector at random, pushing my TIE fighter to structural limits. Behind me, I heard the others doing the same. 4 fighters scattering in different directions, like prey fleeing a predator. The organic ship didn't pursue. Instead, it fired. Not the death beam, but something else. Pods, dozens of them, launching from its hull like seedlings, spreading through space in all directions. They were fast, faster than our TIE fighters, and they tracked us with terrifying precision. One caught Jax first. It attached to his fighter's hull, and I heard him scream through the comm, a sound of pure terror that cut off in a wet gurgle. His fighter veered wildly, then steadied, then began flying back toward the organic ship under its own power, but Jax wasn't flying it. I could hear him in the background of the still open comm channel, making sounds that weren't words, sounds that didn't come from anything human. A pod caught Tarek next. His fighter jerked like a hooked fish, and I heard him praying in Alderaanian, words tumbling over each other in desperate litany before his comm went silent. "Volus!" I shouted. "Volus, where are you?" "Still flying," she gasped. "I count 4 pods on my tail. I can't shake them. I can't—" Her comm died. I was alone. 3 pods pursuing me, closing the distance despite my best evasive maneuvers. I flew through the graveyard of dead ships, hoping to lose them in the debris field, but they followed like they were tethered to my fighter. My life support indicator showed 4 hours remaining, not enough to reach anything, not enough to matter. I was going to die here, in the dark between systems, and no one would ever know what happened. That's when I saw it. One of the dead Star Destroyers, the closest one, maybe 2 kilometers away, had a hangar bay still open. A yawning cavity in its hull, large enough to fly a Corvette through. Dark inside, no lights, but it was cover. Maybe the pods wouldn't follow me into an enclosed space. Maybe I could hide long enough to think of something else. I dove for it. The pods matched my course, gaining. I pushed my TIE fighter beyond red line, feeling the frame shudder, hearing metal stress. The hangar bay loomed ahead, a black mouth in the Star Destroyer's gray hull, and I aimed straight for it. I shot through the atmospheric shield, still active somehow, powered by whatever kept the ship's gravity functioning, and into the hangar. Emergency lights flickered, casting red shadows across rows of dead TIE fighters parked in perfect formation. I killed my engines and let momentum carry me deep into the bay, then reignited at minimum power, maneuvering between parked fighters to hide. The pods stopped at the hangar entrance. They hovered there, probing the atmospheric shield like it was a barrier they couldn't cross, then slowly retreated back into space. I was safe. For now, I sat in my cockpit, breathing hard, listening to my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. The hangar was cold. Not as cold as Coordinate 2, but cold enough that frost formed on surfaces. Emergency lights flickered in patterns that hurt to watch. And it was silent, absolutely silent, the kind of silence that exists only in dead places. My life support showed 3 hours, 47 minutes remaining. I considered my options. Wait here and suffocate. Try to reach another part of the ship, maybe find emergency supplies, or go back out there and let the pods take me quickly. None of them were good. I unsealed my cockpit and climbed out, magnetic boots clicking on the hangar deck. The artificial gravity was lower than standard, maybe 60%, making every movement feel floaty and wrong. I could see my breath, white clouds in the red emergency lighting. The parked TIE fighters surrounded me, dozens of them, all perfectly maintained, all completely dead. I approached the nearest one, looked into the cockpit, and saw the pilot still strapped into his seat. No, not still strapped. Never left. He was mummified, frozen, skin pulled tight over his skull, eyes closed, hands resting on the controls like he'd just gone to sleep. His uniform was clean. His helmet sat beside him, Imperial crest polished and bright. No signs of violence, no indication of struggle. He'd just stopped. I checked another fighter, another dead pilot perfectly preserved. Then another, and another. Every single TIE fighter in the hangar had its pilot still inside, all of them dead, all of them looking like they'd simply closed their eyes and never opened them again. I ran, magnetic boots pounding on deck plating. I ran for the hangar exit, for the interior corridors, for anywhere that wasn't filled with dead men sitting in cockpits. I found the main corridor access, palmed the control, and it opened. Power still functioned, at least partially. The ship wasn't completely dead. The corridors were worse. They were full of crew, hundreds of them, thousands maybe, all perfectly preserved, all frozen in whatever they'd been doing when they died. A technician kneeling beside an access panel, tools in hand. An officer standing at a comm station, hand reaching for controls he'd never touch. Stormtroopers in formation, weapons held at parade rest. A cafeteria full of crew eating meals they'd never finish. No violence, no panic, no signs of struggle or battle. They'd just stopped all at once, like someone had flipped a switch and turned off their lives. I walked through them, my breathing loud inside my helmet, and felt madness clawing at the edges of my mind. This wasn't combat, this wasn't war. This was something else, something worse, something that made death in battle seem merciful. I found the bridge. The command crew was still at their stations, captain included. He sat in his command chair, back straight, hands folded in his lap, eyes closed. A perfect corpse doing a perfect imitation of command. The viewports showed space beyond. The graveyard of ships, the distant stars, and somewhere out there, the organic ship waiting with infinite patience. I checked the ship's logs. The Star Destroyer was the Ravager, assigned to the corporate sector, reported missing 8 months ago. Its last logged entry was a routine. Patrol report, nothing unusual, no distress signals, and then nothing. The logs just stopped, mid-shift, as if the entire crew had simultaneously decided to stop recording. I pulled up the other dead Star Destroyer's identifications from my fighter's limited sensors. The different inexorable, an Imperial class, lost 2 years ago. The Adjudicator missing 14 months. The Crucible gone for 9 months. All of them disappeared during routine patrols in the expansion region, all written off as navigational errors or rebel actions. All of them here, preserved in this graveyard between systems, trophies of something that hunted Imperial patrols. My life support showed 2 hours, 19 minutes. I sat down in the navigator station next to a dead lieutenant whose face was smooth and untroubled, and tried to think. The organic ship clearly couldn't enter the Star Destroyer, or chose not to. The atmospheric shields kept the pods out. I was temporarily safe, but temporarily wasn't enough. I couldn't call for help. couldn't jump away, couldn't fly to safety. I was trapped in a corpse ship in a graveyard with something ancient and alien waiting outside. And then I noticed the bodies were wrong. Not their positions, not their preservation, their uniforms. The crew of the Ravager wore Imperial uniforms, regulation, clean, proper. But the style was wrong. The insignias were wrong. These weren't contemporary uniforms. These were old, pre-Endor patterns, the kind my father wore in images from his youth. This ship hadn't disappeared 8 months ago. It had been here for decades. I pulled up the logs again, looked closer at the dates. Imperial standard dating, yes, but when I converted to local system coordinates accounting for relativistic drift and hyperspace lane variations. The Ravager had disappeared 43 years ago. The others were older, some 50 years, some 60. Ships that had gone missing during the Clone Wars, during the early Empire, during campaigns I'd only read about in history files. And all of them here, perfectly preserved, aging impossibly slowly, crew still intact. "We preserve what you lose," the voices had said. This wasn't a graveyard. It was a collection, a museum. These ships were exhibits, kept perfect and unchanging, monuments to the Empire's reach. And the organic ship was the curator, gathering more specimens for its endless archive. I was going to become part of the collection. The realization didn't come with panic. I was too exhausted for panic, too far beyond terror. Instead, I felt something like resignation, cold and heavy. I was going to die here. My fighter would be added to the hangar. Eventually, someone would find me frozen at this station, preserved like the navigator, and they'd wonder who I was and how I died. My life support showed 1 hour, 42 minutes. I recorded a message. The navigator station had recording capability, ship's logs, personal notes, whatever crew needed to document. I activated it, cleared my throat, and spoke. "This is TIE fighter pilot designate Dagger 7 Imperial Navy, assigned to the inexorable. If anyone finds this recording, you need to know what happened here. You need to warn High Command. Do not send patrols to these coordinates. Do not investigate disappearances in this sector. There is something here, something that hunts Imperial ships, and it has been collecting them for decades." I described everything. The coordinates, the organic ship, the death beam, the pods, the graveyard of star destroyers, the preserved crew. I spoke clearly, carefully, knowing this might be the only record that survived. "I don't know what it is," I said. "I don't know if it's alien or force-sensitive or something else entirely, but it's intelligent, it speaks, it collects, and it's patient. It's been here for decades, maybe longer, gathering ships and preserving them. It wants to create a monument to the Empire's expansion, a warning or a trophy or something I don't understand." My voice was steady. That surprised me. I'd always thought I'd be terrified at the end, but instead I felt calm, detached, like I was narrating someone else's death. "My squadron is dead. Dagger Squadron, all 12 pilots, killed at coordinates 2 and 3 during a routine patrol. Our Star Destroyer doesn't know we're missing, can't know because we never made it back. We'll be listed as lost to navigational error or equipment failure, and eventually they'll send another patrol to investigate, and that patrol will disappear too." I paused, collecting my thoughts. If you're hearing this, you probably found this ship. You probably came here investigating the disappearances. Don't make the same mistake. Don't try to fight it. Don't try to understand it. Just mark these coordinates as hazardous space, declare them off limits, and never come back. Let us stay dead. Let this graveyard remain forgotten. My life support showed 1 hour, 7 minutes. "For what it's worth," I continued, "I was 19 years old. I enlisted because I believed in the Empire, believed we were maintaining order against chaos. I flew patrols for 2 years and never killed anyone except pirates, and smugglers. I had a squadron I loved, brothers and sisters who died beside me, and I hope they didn't suffer. I hope whatever that thing does to preserve its collection is quick and painless, though I doubt it. I looked at the dead navigator beside me, his face peaceful in the red emergency lighting. My name is Davrin Cole. I was born on Karulag. My father processed requisition forms. I have 2 brothers who'll never know what happened to me, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry I believed. Sorry I served. Sorry I followed orders into this nightmare. The Empire told us we were bringing order to the galaxy, but maybe we were just spreading into places we didn't belong, claiming territory we had no right to claim. Maybe this thing is what happens when you push too far into the dark. Maybe we deserve this. My life support showed 43 minutes. I sat back, looking at the viewports, at the stars beyond. They were beautiful, cold, and distant and eternal. I wondered if my father would ever learn what happened. Probably not. They'd send him a standardized notice. We regret to inform you that your son, Davrin Cole, Imperial Navy, was lost in the line of duty. His service brought honor to the Empire. Meaningless words, bureaucratic courtesy, the same message they'd sent to thousands of families. I wondered if anyone would remember me. The organic ship appeared outside the viewport. It moved close, impossibly close, until its hull filled the view. Dark purple-black surface rippling with whatever passed for life. I could see details now, patterns that might have been circulatory systems, structures that might have been eyes, openings that might have been mouths. It was beautiful in a terrible way, organic architecture on a scale that made star destroyers look crude. The voices returned, speaking inside my skull. You are the first to hide, they said. The others accept the collection. They close their eyes and sleep. But you run, you hide, you resist. Why? I didn't know if it could hear me, but I answered anyway. Because I'm afraid. Fear is natural. Fear is survival. But here, fear is pointless. You cannot escape. You cannot fight. You can only join the collection or die outside it. We offer preservation. We offer eternity. Your empire will fall, but here, you will remain forever, perfect and unchanging. I don't want eternity, I said. I want to go home. Home is temporary. Home is dust. But here, you are forever. The ship extended something, a tendril, an appendage, something that touched the Star Destroyer's hull. I felt the impact through the deck plating, a shudder that ran through the entire vessel. The emergency lights flickered. Last chance, the voices said. Join the collection willingly or we will take you by force. The preservation process is gentler when accepted. My life support showed 19 minutes. I thought about my options. Die here alone, suffocating in a dead ship. Or step outside, let the pods take me, become another perfectly preserved corpse in the graveyard. Either way, I was dead. Either way, I'd never go home. But at least if I went outside, I'd die on my terms. I'd die flying. I stood up, walked back through the corridors of frozen crew, back to the hangar bay. My TIE fighter sat where I'd left it, cockpit still open, systems on standby. Enough fuel for maybe an hour of flight, enough life support for 15 minutes. I climbed in, sealed the cockpit, and fired the engines. The TIE fighter roared to life, twin ion engines screaming in the silence, and I felt something like joy. This was where I belonged, not in a command chair, not frozen at a station, but here, in the cockpit, flying. If I was going to die, I'd die moving. I launched from the hangar, punching through the atmospheric shield into open space. The pods were waiting, dozens of them, hovering in formation like they'd known I'd come back out. Behind them, the organic ship hung massive and patient. Last chance, the voices repeated. I armed my laser cannons. Go to hell, I said, and opened fire. The ruby bolts hammered the organic ship's hull, splashing harmlessly across its surface. It didn't react, didn't move, just waited while I emptied my weapon capacitors in futile defiance. When the cannons finally ran dry, I banked hard, diving toward the nearest Star Destroyer, the pods pursuing. I flew like I'd never flown before, through the graveyard between dead hulls, under sensor arrays and over hangar bays, pushing my TIE fighter beyond any sane limit. The pods followed, always close, always patient, but never quite catching me. I was good. My instructors had said so, my squadron had said so, and now, in the last minutes of my life, I proved it. But you can't outfly fate. A pod finally attached to my fighter's hull, and I felt it immediately. A wrongness, a violation, something burrowing into my ship's systems. The controls went sluggish. My targeting computer died. The fighter began pulling toward the organic ship despite my inputs. I fought it. Hands white-knuckled on the controls, I fought with everything I had. Tried to override the pod's influence, tried to maintain control, but it was useless. The fighter wasn't mine anymore. My life support showed 3 minutes. The organic ship loomed ahead, close enough to see individual details, close enough to see openings in its hull where other dead TIE fighters were being drawn inside. Storage, preservation, the collection. I was going to join them, and then something impossible happened. A flash of light, brilliant white, so bright it whited out my viewport. My sensors screamed warnings, multiple new contacts, massive energy signatures, and when my vision cleared, I saw them. Star Destroyers, 4 of them, Imperial class, engines glowing hot, running lights, active, real ones, living ones, and they were firing. Turbo laser batteries opened up, emerald bolts hammering the organic ship from 4 directions simultaneously. The ship recoiled, its hull rippling, dark fluid venting from wounds that shouldn't have been possible. The pod controlling my fighter released, falling away, and I regained control. Unidentified TIE fighter, this is the adjudicator. A voice came through my comm that had been dead for hours. Identify yourself immediately. I couldn't speak. My voice had died, strangled by shock and hope and disbelief. TIE fighter, respond or be fired upon, the voice demanded. This is Dagger 7, I managed. Imperial Navy from the Inexorable. I'm the only survivor. Acknowledged, Dagger 7. Return to the adjudicator immediately. Hangar Bay 3 is open. We'll hold. Off that thing while you dock. The 4 Star Destroyers formed a wall between me and the organic ship, their turbo lasers creating a curtain of fire. The ship was retreating now, pulling back, its tendrils withdrawing from the dead vessels around us. It wasn't invincible. Sufficient firepower could hurt it. I flew toward the adjudicator, life support showing 90 seconds, and felt tears streaming down my face, inside my helmet. I was going to live. Against all probability, against all logic, I was going to survive. The hangar bay swallowed me and I set down hard, landing gear shrieking on deck plating. Crew in full environment suits rushed forward, unsealing my cockpit, pulling me out. I collapsed in their arms, legs unable to support me, and heard someone shouting for medical. How many? I gasped. How many in my squadron survived? The crew member holding me up, a sergeant with kind eyes behind his helmet, shook his head slowly. You're the only one, son. When you didn't report back, they sent us to investigate. We found all of it. The dead ships, the graveyard, that thing. We thought we'd lost you too. I wanted to say something, wanted to explain what happened, but exhaustion crashed over me like a wave. The last thing I remember before losing consciousness was looking back at my TIE fighter, at the 7 kill markers on the viewport, and thinking how pointless they seemed now. They pulled me out, took me back to Coralog, debriefed me for 3 weeks straight. Navy Intelligence, ISB, even a Moff who listened to my story with an expression like he'd bitten into something rotten. I told them everything, showed them my recording from the Ravager, corroborated it with the data the Star Destroyers had collected. They believed me, but they classified it. The coordinates were marked as hazardous space, declared off limits, and the official record stated that Dagger Squadron had been lost to a navigational anomaly. No mention of the organic ship, no mention of the graveyard, no mention of the collection. Just another patrol lost to the hazards of space, mourned briefly, then forgotten. They offered me a commendation and a promotion. I refused both. They offered me a transfer to a prestige posting, training command, anything to keep me in the Navy. I refused. Instead, I requested discharge, medical grounds, psychological trauma. They granted it with suspicious speed, clearly relieved to be rid of me. I went home to Korulag, moved back into my father's apartment, and tried to forget. But you don't forget something like that. You carry it every day, every night, in dreams that wake you screaming and memories that surface at unexpected moments. I see them constantly. Wrench's fighter going still, Kess screaming, the dead crew of the Ravager frozen at their stations. I hear the voices. We are what waits in the dark between stars. My father asked me once what happened out there. I told him I couldn't talk about it, that it was classified. He nodded, understanding that there were secrets the Empire kept, and never asked again. My brothers visited occasionally, both of them successful in their Imperial careers, both of them looking at me with a mixture of pity and contempt. I was the failure, the son who couldn't handle service, who washed out after only 2 years. I didn't tell them the truth, couldn't tell them that I'd seen something the Empire didn't want anyone to know about, something that hunted Imperial patrols and had been doing so for decades. Couldn't tell them that there were places in the galaxy where the Empire's power meant nothing, where human arrogance was met with cold preservation and eternal silence. The years passed. The Empire fell. Endor, the Emperor's death, the fracturing of Imperial authority. The New Republic rose. I watched it all from Korulag, a distant spectator feeling nothing. The grand politics, the galactic struggles, they all seemed meaningless compared to what I'd seen in the dark between systems. Sometimes I wonder if the organic ship is still there, still collecting, still preserving. I wonder if it views the Empire's fall as confirmation of what it said. Your empire will fall, but here you will remain forever. I wonder if new governments will send patrols to those coordinates, will ignore the warnings, will add their ships to the graveyard. I wonder if anyone else escaped, or if I was the only one lucky enough, or unlucky enough, to survive. I'm old now, 63 years, though I feel ancient. The galaxy has changed beyond recognition. The Empire is a memory, the New Republic is establishing itself, and there's even talk of the Jedi returning, but none of it matters to me. I'm still in that cockpit, still flying through the graveyard, still hearing the voices. We are what waits in the dark between stars. I requested this recording, this holocron they call them now, because I need to tell someone the truth before I die. The Empire classified it. The New Republic doesn't know about it, but someone needs to know. Someone needs to understand that there are things in the galaxy older and stranger than our petty wars. Things that view human civilization as temporary and foolish. The coordinates were 27.4, 19.7, 8.2, and 27.8, 19.9, 8.5, and 28.2, 20.1, 8.8, measured from the Korulag system primary. Don't go there. Don't investigate. Don't try to recover the ships or study the phenomenon. Just mark it as hazardous space and leave it alone. Let the dead stay dead. Let the collection remain undisturbed. Let whatever waits there continue waiting in the dark between stars, preserving its monuments to human hubris. I see them in my dreams, you know. Wrench and Kess and Tarek and Volus and Jax and all the others. They're standing in perfect formation, frozen and peaceful, part of the eternal collection. And sometimes I think I should have stayed with them, should have accepted the preservation, joined the graveyard, become a monument instead of a survivor, because surviving isn't the same as living, and carrying the memory of the dead is heavier than any tomb. My name is Davrin Cole. I was 19 years old when I flew into the dark between Koralag and Bothawui. I'm 63 now, and I've spent 44 years trying to forget something unforgettable. This is my confession. This is my warning. Don't go looking for us. Don't try to understand what happened. Just remember that the galaxy is vast and ancient and full of things we were never meant to encounter. Remember that human expansion has limits we don't get to choose. Remember that some disappearances should stay mysterious. Some deaths should stay unmourned. Some truths should stay hidden. Remember Dagger Squadron. Remember the Imperial patrol that disappeared between two systems, and never, ever go looking for where we ended up. The truth. I've lived 44 years beyond that day, and I've learned that some survivals are curses. They saved me because 4 Star Destroyers happened to investigate at the right moment, because someone in high command finally noticed the pattern, because fate or chance or the Force decided I wasn't done. But I was done. I've been done since the moment those pods chased me through the graveyard. Everything after has been borrowed time, unearned, unwanted. I dream of them every night, my squadron frozen and perfect in the collection. They look peaceful. I look haunted. Sometimes I wonder if the organic ship was right, if preservation is kinder than memory, if eternity as a monument is better than decades as a ghost. I'm recording this because someone needs to know the truth, and because I hope when I die, I'll finally stop seeing them in the dark. I hope the collection doesn't reach this far. I hope death is just silence, not another form of preservation. But if you're hearing this, if you found this recording, do better than I did. Don't follow orders into the dark. Don't trust that the Empire, or any empire, has mapped every danger. And don't go looking for mysteries that want to stay hidden. Let the dead rest. Let the disappeared stay lost. And remember that the galaxy is older and stranger than any of us will ever understand.